We arrived in Shelter Bay Marina in Colon, Panama after an 8-day transit from Florida, and after checking into Panama began the waiting game to transit through the canal. Our agent had told us in advance that it could be anywhere from 8 to 10 days after getting measured, which is the first step in the process. After that, the Panama Canal Authority goes to work behind the scenes, figuring out where the small cruising boats will fit into their schedule. It seems to depend on several factors, including how many small cruising boats are waiting, the size and number of commercial ships, and availability of the required advisors that ride on and command the small boats. Small cruising boats are definitely not a priority, as the revenue that is generated is trivial in comparison to transit costs for larger ships, which for large container ships using the new locks can be over $1 million per passage. When looked upon in that context, the fact that they make time for and accommodate small pleasure boats that need to transit is something that should be really appreciated, even if at times the process seems slow and frustrating. We got measured a couple days after arriving in Panama, and we were given a transit date of April 21st, which would be a 10-day wait from when we arrived. Shelter Bay Marina was a great place to spend some time, as the facilities are modern and clean, it's easy to get to Cologne for supplies, and when not working on the seemingly endless boat projects, it's a great place to share stories with fellow cruisers. It definitely does seem like Panama is the crossroads of the world, with boats and crew from everywhere waiting to transit the canal. One of the questions that people seem to be really curious about is the cost of going through the canal on a small pleasure boat. The largest cost is the fee paid to the Canal Authority, which in our case was $1,300. Boats under 50 feet are only $800, and above 80 feet the cost is significantly higher. The other costs include transit inspection, $54, transit security fee, $130, vendors and line rental, $75, bank charges, $60, agent fee, which is another big one, is $350, line handlers are $100 each, and we needed 2 for a cost of $200, and a checkout clearance is $35. It all adds up to a total cost of $2,204 for our canal transit.
Hola.
¿Cómo está? Se quedó. ¿Viene para este?
Como 7 seguidas está llorando atrás.
Hey, no, sí, yo dije, pero ya los penales que no,
¿Él quiere venir para este?
sí, el que ya porque es el bellezón, o sea, el
There are 4 ways that small boats can transit the canal locks, and it's not known until the day of transit how it will be done. The options are tied to the canal wall, which our agent recommended we refuse because of a high potential for damage, center lock, which is alone in the center of the lock with lines to both sides, nested, which is rafted to 1 or 2 other boats, or tied to a tug. On the morning of our transit, the advisor let us know that we would be going through nested to a sailing catamaran and another small sailboat. Because we were the largest boat, we would be in the center position and responsible for maneuvering through the locks. Before the entrance to the first chamber of the Gatun locks, the 2 boats that we would raft with came alongside, and we ensured that everything was tied and fendered well enough to handle the substantial loads that can be placed on boats while being raised and lowered through the locks.
Now they're coming in at full speed.
Going up from the Atlantic side of the canal, there is a series of 3 locks that raise boats to the level of the man-made Gatun Lake, which is 85 feet above sea level. The larger ships are controlled by tugs and electric locomotives on the sides of the canal, but small boats are all handled manually. Heaving lines with a weight called a monkey fist on one end are thrown from the canal walls at the entrance to each lock chamber and walked along as boats move slowly under their own power into the lock. Once inside the chamber, the heaving lines are attached to the heavier weight lock lines, which are hauled up and attached to bollards at the top of the canal walls. It is then up to the line handlers on the transiting boats to take up or ease lines as appropriate to keep uniform tension on the lines and keep the boats centered in the locks as the water level is raised. Normally, the lock lines are attached to the outermost boats when going through in a 3-boat wide raft, but the advisors were concerned that the deck cleats on the small sailboat on our port side would rip out of their deck, and the lock lines on that side were therefore attached to our boat.
Manda, Alan.
What do you think, Cassidy? Is it cool?
In and out of neutral and keep fast?
Yeah. I didn't know when we go back again. Yeah. No, I'm good. Still good. tenga que flotar el cruzado.
Just waiting to come in. We gotta close these locks first. Get away from the wall.
Okay.
We go to the redwood.
Okay. Got it. Going down from Gatun Lake to the Pacific side, there are also 3 locks, but they are separated into the single Pedro Miguel lock first and then 2 final locks called the Miraflores locks. The small sailboat that we locked up with from the Atlantic did not have enough speed to make it across Gatun Lake in a single day, so we rode the Pedro Miguel locks down, rafted to the catamaran that we came up with lock lines attached to each of our boats again. Miraflores, we ended up riding down both chambers tied to a tug that was attached to the canal wall. This was not a bad way to end the day, as the tug handled all of the line easing and all we had to do was go along for a ride. There's also a large audience at the Canal Visitor Center at the Miraflores Locks, so it may have been a bonus that our boat and line handling skills were not on display for the closely watching crowds. Thanks, Roy.